I'm not going to do hello my relatives, that's how we say it. I'm from the White Earth Reservation. Do you all know where Minnesota is?
Yeah.
Very good. I'm between Bemidji and Fargo. That's where I flew out of. There's a blizzard today. There you go. She is not. She's my friend. She passed away a few years ago, but I thought she wanted to be here. She told me, like, in that way. This is Roberta Blackcoat, and she's a Navajo woman. She, I don't know how do you make it go back to Roberta? I wasn't done talking about her. Huh? Well, I'm good. So just leave her? Nothing's going to happen to her? I'm really last millennium, let's just be honest. Barely know how to operate this darn thing. But anyway, I really appreciated your opening remarks. Saved me a lot of trouble, but it is true. A country that consumes a third of the world's resources, or a quarter, whatever we're consuming at this point, requires pretty much massive intervention into other countries on a chronic, just ongoing intervention and ongoing violations of other people's human rights. A lot of the issues that we are facing are totally predicated on our level of consumption and choices that we live by in this country, and our entitlement, frankly, our North American entitlement. And that crosses every class to the extent that we've become enculturated in consumption. I live in the poorest reservation in the state of Minnesota. We beat Red Lake one more time, but we still have exactly the same issues that every other community has. So I wanted to start by talking about, this is a woman, she passed away about 20 years ago, no, about 15 years ago. Good friend of mine, Roberta Blackcoat from the Navajo Reservation. And one of the things about Native people, so we have about 4% of the land base in the United States is reservations or reserves. In Canada, there's 613 Native communities. And when you go north of the 50th parallel in Canada, it's the majority population is Native. On that, basically a third of all Western low sulfur coal, and 2/3 of the uranium. Single largest dam projects in North America are on Indian lands in some form, whether it's the James Bay dams or the damming of the Columbia River that would pretty much have dammed up a bunch of Native people. Whether it's ANWR, the oil that is being taken, or the tar sands, is all indigenous territories. So we're pretty much in the middle of this level of consumption in a highly addicted energy economy, which we are. And one of the problems with being an addict, which is essentially what we are in North America, we're addicted. We're a serious addict. And the problem with being an addict is that you do a lot of bad stuff and hang out with dealers, which is kind of how you get the public policy you got. Highly reflective of the interests of dealers. And we have become disenfranchised, and we are, in this struggle that we're going to be in for a while, until we both deal with our addictions, frankly, and gain the mechanisms through which to take some control over where it is we're going to be going. So she lived and died in a place called Big Mountain in the middle of the Navajo Reservation. The federal government passed a law which forced the relocation of 10,000 Navajo people who happened to live over a large coal bed. And that coal is still being mined on the Navajo Reservation. When I went down there to work in the late 70s, there was 5 coal-fired power plants and 4 coal strip mines, 44 uranium mines and 10 uranium mills. And in the meantime, 85% of those Navajo households had no electricity. And most of that power was coming here, Southern California, Edison, essentially feeding into Las Vegas, Albuquerque, Phoenix, and LA, San Diego, right? That's a snapshot of what colonization looks like in this millennium. In theory, you would think that people who had that much energy resources would be rich. And the reality is that demographically, Native people are the poorest people in the country. So there's something obviously structurally maladjusted in terms of who gets the benefits from resources and who pays the price. That's the reality of our situation. And it has been a long and pitched battle, and it's going to continue to be a pitched battle because we are in an era now of essentially extreme energy and extreme mining, where they are going after things that they shouldn't even be looking at, that they shouldn't even be looking at. And that is going back into a lot of these territories. So she faced relocation and pretty much took the position that the Creator is the only one who's going to relocate me. One of my great heroines in my life and a good friend of mine. And that is one thing about Native people. And I don't know where you all came from, but I know that a lot of Native people, the thing that we got is that we probably aren't moving. And so that builds some resilience in a struggle. We may have a lot of messed up stuff in our community, everything you don't want to have, but at the same time, what we're really clear about is that that's our only land. There's not some other place we're going to go to. There's not some greener pasture someplace else. There's not some new community we can go, move on to because it's going to be easier. We're there, And so that's how you build some long-term struggles. I'm going to just talk about a little bit of some of these impacts. This is climate change, Kivalina, Alaska Native Village. As most of you know, I'm going to assume you are not all Fox News watchers, that, in the last election, climate change was not actually an issue. I don't know if you noticed that. I mean, it seemed like got that one covered up. Really. Alaska Native Village, Kivalina, going into the ocean. $40 million is the price tag. You're right, the demographics of impact is disproportionate. In the end, we all happen to live on the same planet. Want to keep it from raising to 2 degrees. Stick towards the 1. We have a shot, or as Bill McKibben says, a reasonable chance of averting cataclysmic climate disaster. I asked Bill what a reasonable chance was. He said 4 out of 5. I was like, that's just great. I'll have to be taking that chance, that shot. This is what it looks like. You all got that last one. I'm not going to spend any time on that because you're smart, right? Temperature's rising. We don't need to go over that. This is the acidification of the ocean from climate change. It's pretty dramatic in the North Pacific. They just did a little geoengineering experiment where they dumped a bunch of iron tailings. Did anybody notice that up there to see how that would work out? I really am uncomfortable with major scientific experiments like that. I don't know how y'all feel about that. But I'm just really not clear that experimenting, I think that solving it before you do it. This is what it looks like, and then this is your ocean on acid. Huge impacts, obviously, for Pacific people, including y'all. I always like eating all them fish. Really not going to be looking too good if we keep this up. And, I've a lot of privilege. You got a sense of me. I mean, I live and work on my reservation, but I'm also kind of a bum. I travel around and I go to other communities, a lot of indigenous communities, and a couple years ago I was down in the South Pacific. Met these people from Christmas Island, these other people from Tuvalu, looking for a new country. Right? They're going under. That's the reality, and that's I don't know who these people are that are in the news all the time, but like these freakish murder cases in the news, when really you get whole countries going under. But we don't want to talk about that. So that whole, who has the power to talk about issues and who controls the media is a huge, challenge that we face. This is look at that. It's freaking me out here. This is one of our personal power plants. This is Navajo's Four Corners. So we've been fighting these for 30 years. These are really old plants. They ain't making any new coal plants in this country, largely because a lot of people fought them. Van did some fighting on that. Your parents fought these. I'm going to make a leap of faith on that one, but nukes and coal plants, but they transitioned all to natural gas, right? So we're just fracking our way in right now. But this is what old stuff looks like that shouldn't hang around, right? And what happens is, and it's happening to us now in our communities, so say you are the Navajo Nation, and you have, 300,000 Navajos, give or take a couple. Demographics aren't looking good, growing population. You got a bunch of coal and uranium, and you have 70% of your economy that is tied to fossil fuels and no plan B. That's what colonialism looks like when you're forced into a transition from a local food economy that sustained you for 5,000 years to this. So what I'm looking at right now, what we're working on is, Roberta Blackcoat's relatives and a bunch of other people. This plant and a lot of other plants are up for different licensing and extensions. Thank you. And then I love these things. But what would you do if you're the BHP Billiton Corporation? You guys know who that is? Like the largest mining corporation in the world, Australian-based. And you had a coal strip mine that was 50 years old, and your analysts told you that the market was not good for coal, and you were on the Navajo reservation. You'd try to sell it to the Navajos, wouldn't you? That's what they're doing right now. I'm trying to sell a 50-year-old coal strip mine with a hell of a lot of liability to some poor people. That's like how messed up our economy is. You guys get that picture? Let's just let that liability stay with those Navajos. Let's just let them keep that stuff, huh? So that's what we're working on. This is your tar sands. I spent a lot of time fighting really bad ideas. You spend $100 billion on investments in the tar sands that you could have instead spent on efficiency and renewables. You just wasted a pile of money. You know, and if it was really for American jobs, why didn't they just end in Billings? There's a bunch of refineries instead of trying to send a pipeline down to the ocean. It's not about American jobs. It never was about American jobs. It's all about corporate profits. But all Native people there. So this is the good part. Now that I bummed you out, this is my grandson. I always like to point out he's outside of the yellow tape. This is us in my community. You know, so I work in these communities that are fighting fossil fuels. You guys got that, right? Because we got them and we'd like to keep them. Carbon belongs in the ground, not in the air. Just really a simple thing. There's no carbon sequestration ferry. There's no nuclear waste ferry. Just leave it in the ground, right? Anyway, so this here is what we're doing. Turns out, I don't know how this worked out, but Indian reservations are the windiest place in the country. I don't know how that worked out, but anyway, we're really windy. And we'd like to own it this time instead of lease it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we're working on building the intellectual capital to control and to put up wind, which is what you'd be doing if you were us, right? Well, I don't know if you guys all would be doing that, but let's just say you'd be doing that if you're us. So that's what we're doing. This is community scale wind that we can control from an island named Lolland in Denmark. They built it so they could fix it with like normal people could fix it. Car mechanics and, you know what I'm saying, like normal people. That's what appropriate technology is. You don't want to have a guy from MIT fix your wind turbine. You want to be, because where I live, 911 doesn't come. You know what I'm saying? I just tell my 13-year-olds, don't even bother, get off the roof, because 911 isn't coming anytime soon. So if you have a wind turbine that's broken, you don't want to be hanging out for 3 months until some guy comes, right? You want to build stuff you can fix. So that's our wind turbine. This is our solar panel. There's my Indians. There's my family. Well, we borrowed 3 stray Indians for that one. That's our solar. I had to fight to get that up, but that's what we're doing, is relocalizing. Your answer is not in some technological fix, although technology is a piece. But for us, what we always said is, one of my good friends is this guy named Mike Wiggins from Bad River Reservation. He says, seems like people don't want to stick around another 1,000 years. Know what I'm saying? We need to be the people that want to stick around, and in order to do that, it turns out you got to relocalize and keep your food local and your energy local. And you cut a whole bunch of fossil fuels and a bunch of oil. So this is my friend Jonesy Miller. Isn't he cute? He's growing this corn. That's the other thing we do. It's not just growing local, although I really like that. I want to get some of that hand of Buddha thing. That's pretty cool. You get that down here. We can't grow that. But we grow this corn. This corn up there is, we grew 8,000 varieties of corn in the Americas. Turns out that stuff is way cool. So this is twice the protein, half the calories of market corn. It's a hominy corn. It's like what they make pasoli out of. Yeah? But twice the protein, half the calories. Much higher in B vitamins than anything you can buy at the store. And this corn is real short, grows about this tall, and it's frost resistant, drought resistant. And when they had a drought this last year in Minnesota, and they lost about 40% of the corn crop, we didn't have crop failure at all. And a few years ago, they had a wind sear that came through and blew down a bunch of cornfields. They blew down all Monsanto's fields, but whose fields still stood? Ours. So that's what we're doing. So we fight these guys, and then what we do is we restore something that's going to be hanging around another 1,000 years. That's really our plan. It's kind of the best that's what we got. And I really believe that your young people, as you look at, what do you guys call the millennial? What did you say, the millennial generation? I never heard that till. I learned a couple new words today. That's what I like about when you go to colleges, you learn new words. get to go home and impress my 13-year-olds. And they're like, Mom, no. Anyway, you gotta have some plan that, the longer you fight these guys, the more expensive their projects are. That's what you need to know. Just keep that in mind. And at a certain point, like some of them, I fought these guys a long time. Like up in the Northwest, we fought nukes. Those guys were called Washington Public Power Supply. Whoops. Really bad acronym, Whoops. Bunch of nukes they want to put up. We fought them for like 8 years. And you know what? Some people here will remember this. That company went bankrupt. Sometimes you fight those guys so long they go bankrupt because they had a bad plan to start with. So don't ever give up on fighting them, because if you don't fight, you don't have a shot. Keep that in mind. But at the same time, do the right thing. If you're waiting for them to do the right thing, give that up. Think into it. Do what we do. Relocalize and build it so that you've got some way, so you have life that you control. As that's Jonesy Miller with our barrel and flint corn. And so we got it in our schools for our ceremonies, for our calls, and we work with a lot of other reservations. So that's what I do, and that's us. And that's it. There you go, you. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Van Jones.